Welcome to tonight's live stream. I'm going to get started in a minute. I just need to go out here and do some promotion for the show on social media. So I just need a minute to get ready and I'll soon start the show. Good evening, D Wood. What's going on, Gordon Freeman and Computer Robots? Glad to see you all here. And before I get into tonight's topic, I'm gonna give you guys another progress report on the John Haynes at Death's Door comic. Now, this week I dropped a preview or a teaser page of what you are going to be able to get in the John Haynes at Death's Door comic as related to the interior. So, that one page that you saw in the post, that is going to be the art style for the entire comic. So, that's what the comic is going to look like. We are one third of a way into the John Haynes at Death's Door comic, and Antonio Balderi is doing a fantastic job on the art. And I'm hoping to get the completed comic sooner rather than later. I mean, we're going at a good pace here. So I'm really happy with the work Antonio is doing. It's just absolutely fantastic art. And I can't wait to share that comic with you. So I just dropped a teaser to show you guys what the interior and the cover are going to look like. So the book is continuing to make progress. Now, in addition to the progress I have been making on the John Haynes at Death's Door comic, I have also been working behind the scenes on editing the Stop Simpin in Cyberspace book. And the Stop Simpin in Cyberspace book is already uploaded to KDP and is available for pre-order on Kindle. The paperback will be available soon, so you'll be able to pick up your own copy of Stop Simpin in Cyberspace by the middle of October. Hoping to get that book together because that's what I'm working on right now. And I'm also working on the new E-Steam series book, E-Steam Cancel Vacation. This one is a social commentary on cancel culture. And I just got through finishing modifying the Photoshop for the cover. So I cleaned that up and that's ready to go. And you'll be able to pre-order that on Kindle, and the paperback will be out soon as well. So you get canceled Vacation on Amazon right now in Kindle for pre-order, and you can get the paperback soon. So those are some of the books that I'm working on, and I've started work again on The Woman Crisis. Now, The Woman Crisis is a 2022 book, which is really a companion to The Man Crisis, and this book is one where I'm going in depth on the crisis that's going on with America's women. And I wanted to do a whole stream on that, but I'm going to wait to do that until I get the book in its draft stage, and that's what I'm planning for the future. But for tonight's topic, I'm going to ask a critical question are black entertainers concerned with the black image? Now, the reason why I'm asking that question is because every time I see one of these black celebrities out here, they are participating in behavior that is detrimental to the optics of the image of black people. Now, it looks like in a previous live stream, I talked about how your black Hollywood has sold out, and it doesn't seem like many of your black entertainers are concerned with how their behavior is making us look as a collective. Because the reason why I really believe that is because when I look at an entertainer like your Ms. Pat, clearly here's a woman who knows about all of the negative stereotypes perpetuated about the image of black women, but instead of trying to present an image that makes our sisters appear positive, this woman goes out of her way to make the image of our sisters worse by breathing brand new life into old stereotypes on her new TV show on BET Plus. So when I looked at your Ms. Pat, she is a prime example of someone who really doesn't seem like she's concerned with the image of black womanhood and how this reflects on other black women. I mean, here's a woman who gets an opportunity to have her own TV show, and instead of going out here and trying to present an example to our sisters of a positive image of black womanhood, she's going out here breathing brand new life into old stereotypes about black women. And as I see it, that's not very responsible as an entertainer because, you're entertainers. Yes, you want to make your jokes, you want to tell your stories, but you got to really think about how things look as related to the black image because we've already got a lot of media out here that makes our brothers and sisters look bad, like all of these news reports, all of these minstrel shows, and all of these other types of media. And I think about it, and it's not something that many people are seeing these days. They're not really thinking about, how this media reflects on our image. They're not thinking about how this media is influential on young brothers and sisters, but it's something I think about every day as a writer and a publisher, and it's something I think about because I want to be a responsible publisher because I understand media has an influence on people. And if you imbibe the wrong media, it can practically destroy the way an entire generation sees itself. And I saw this happen with many people who grew up in the late 80s and early 90s when your gangster rap came into vogue because we had a lot of these young brothers and sisters out here who bought into these ideas from Madison Avenue in Hollywood regarding the thug, regarding the gangster, and they bought into these stereotypes about these ideas about black manhood and black womanhood. And a lot of those kids grew up believing that these images and ideas were the supposed norm for black men and black women. So we had an entire generation growing up believing that a black man, the best he could be is a thug or a gangster. And we had a generation of young women growing up thinking that the best they could be was a hood rat or a baby mama. And that was all due to the media that was presented to them by your Madison Avenue and your Hollywood and a generation of, as I call it, irresponsible entertainers who were trying to sell us on this narrative of so-called real, but their reality was something created actually by white corporate bosses who only wanted to see stereotypes presented to them that would make them feel comfortable about the place of black Americans. So they want to see a certain image on their media platforms regarding the black image, and they want to see only a certain kind of black people on their platform. So as related to the Ms. Pat show, they are happy to see her because she is fitting the stereotypes that many of your racists feel comfortable with. And many of your racists, ever since the days of the antebellum South, they love seeing these caricatures repackaged and reproduced that make them feel comfortable. And when you look at the Ms. Pat show from a critical perspective, all you're getting is the repackaging of the old stereotype of the mammy, the old stereotype of the sapphire, and these are stereotypes that are meant to sate white racist egos, because I can't say white people, I can say white racists, because they're the ones who want to see this type of programming. And you have to go someplace like the Jim Crow Museum to understand the whole concept of the mammy and the sapphire to see why the Ms. Pat show is a complete insult to Black Americans. So on that website, they show you all of the stereotypes of black people that were created. And I go to this website. This is where I did a lot of my research for many of my books. One second, G-Boot. I'll get to you in a minute. What's going on? I do live streams with G-Boot 2786 on Thursdays, and we talk about a variety of topics. I'm glad to see you here. I'm glad to see you here, Nightingale Wednesday Nightmare, Joy Brooks. I'm glad to see you here, Bronx Project, D Wood 78. I'm glad to see you all here. I'm going to post this link to the Jim Crow Museum first, and then I will post a link to G-Boot's channel so you guys can check out his channel. Then you can catch me on Thursday nights or Tuesday nights where I wound up last week because we had scheduling issues. So we worked that out, and I was able to do his show on Tuesday night instead of Thursday night because I was free that night. So I was doing some work on the woman crisis. So you can sub to Flying Around. Sub to G2786's channel by clicking the link in the chat. And you can also, drop a cash app so I can continue doing streams like this and continue dropping all of this fresh content. So get back to this subject, which again, when we talk about, are Black entertainers concerned with the Black image? And yeah, a lot of this content that's produced, it's really meant to, again, sate white racist egos. They want to see a certain kind of Black people. They want to see a certain kind of story regarding Black people. And yes, they will go out here and spin stories to say, oh, we are about promoting diversity passively, but aggressively, we keep seeing the same images from these producers over and over again, but with completely different faces. But what's really interesting is that the completely different faces keep saying the exact same things that these entertainers of the past once said. And it seems like that many of them are parroting the things that people said before. And that's all by design because they look for a certain kind of person to go out here and be a part of their entertainment industry because they're looking for somebody who's going to be a bootleg and a brown noser who will go out here and do their bidding. And that's what they're looking for in a person like a possible Ms. Pat based on what I saw in that interview. I saw in that interview somebody who I could take everything that she said from today and go back to interviews with people like Stephen Fetchit, people like Bill Bojangles Robinson, people like your Hattie McDaniel. These were the top Black entertainers in Hollywood back during the days of Jim Crow, and she made the exact same statement as one of those entertainers back then. And then you further go back in history and listen to the statements of an Oprah Winfrey, and it's practically the exact same statements all over once again. So you're getting the exact same statements from a person from 2021 that fit just like Oprah Winfrey's statements in the 1980s, just like your Stephen Fetchman, Bill Bojangles Robinson, and Hattie McDaniel. And that shows us a pattern as related to the kind of black person that your Hollywood actively goes out here and recruits. It looks like they're not looking for a person who is about black empowerment. They're not about the optics of how they go out here and present the black image. And it's all about them going out here and being some sort of individual and not thinking about how their image reflects on the group. So when I look at what your Hollywood, when they go out here and look for an entertainer, they are looking for a certain kind of person with a certain kind of values, and they're looking for an individual whose values are those who I believe to possibly be amoral or immoral, because the only type of person who would sit there and literally look to bootlick, buck dance, and bojangle and have no problem making the entire race look bad is that kind of person. And looks like that's the type of person Hollywood seems to have next to no problem going out here and elevating to a higher status. And in the case of a lot of these entertainers, as related to them going out here and betraying the black community, a lot of them will do this because they want to, again, gain the favor of many of these white racists in Hollywood. And they believe the only way to further get more stardom, or basically more attention from white people, is to go out here and betray their race. That's another tenet of many of these black entertainers. And a lot of them will go out here and do anything to gain that favor. Now, that's where I start to see an issue with many of these black entertainers, in that they are willing to sacrifice their intangibles, like their dignity and their self-respect, to go out here and appease these white Hollywood executives. But when they go out here and participate in this degrading behavior, what happens is they don't really think about how this impacts other black people. Again, like the Ms. Pat show, you have this big, obese black woman who was wearing a weave. And again, this is something that perpetuates the worst image of black women. And it makes every black woman out here look bad, because you have a black woman perpetuating a terrible stereotype about black women. And then this is compounded with the stereotypes that we saw a decade previously, that Halle Berry ushered in. Now, your Halle Berry is another example of another black entertainer who didn't really think about the optics of how she was reflecting the black image. And your Halle Berry, she wanted to go out here and win this Oscar and become a star with white people. And she willingly accepted the script from Lee Daniels for Monsters Ball. And when she accepted that script for Monsters Ball, which Angela Bassett and Queen Latifah and Vanessa Williams turned down, which Angela Bassett called a prostitute role, your Halle Berry didn't see how she was hurting the overall black image. Now, your Halle Berry came out here with this Monsters Ball and thought, oh, I'm going to win this Oscar and get this great role. But what that did was it just destroyed all of black culture, because what happened was all of your young black women, they went out here buying into this stereotype of Letitia Musgrove, and it created an entire generation of black women and girls who, instead of aspiring for excellence like their mothers did with Bill Cosby's Claire Huxtable character and many others that came up during the 80s, we started to see black women embracing degeneracy and debauchery and believing that this was the norm. Because after Halle Berry's Monsters Ball came along, that's when we started to see the decline of the black female image, and we started to see the whole pushing of the prostitute image to the mainstream, because Halle Berry's Letitia Musgrove character was basically one of these black Jezebels. And the black Jezebel was an old racist stereotype that said black women were sexually promiscuous, that they would just have sex with anyone. And this, again, opened the door to what we saw over the last, as I see it, 15 to 20 years, the images of the black woman out here twerking, the black woman out here fighting in these fast food restaurants, and all of the degeneracy we have seen as related to the black female image all started with Monsters Ball. And again, all because a Hollywood starlet wasn't thinking about how her image was influential, the same way many of your gangster rappers weren't thinking about how their image was influential. And a lot of these entertainers, they're not really thinking about how their image is representing in the media to all of these young kids out here who watch their content. They're not understanding that the images you present on these media platforms, it's something kids are growing up with, because kids, when they see many of these shows, and even young people see these shows, they want to emulate that behavior, and they want to emulate that behavior because they think that these entertainers are participating in real acts. But the whole thing is they're not understanding that a lot of this is scripted. And again, there's one reason why they call it programming, because it's about programming ideas into people's minds. So what they want to do is program these ideas into people's minds that black people participate in some of the most degenerate, debaucherous, and even more disturbing behavior. And that's one of the issues I have with your black entertainers, because they need to know that, yes, you want to be a star, but you're just having a negative impact on all of these black folks out here with your behavior. In the mix, it's talking about the Upshaws, which is another negative show. And the Upshaws is a show that presents us with the worst ideas about black family, promoting the idea that black families are dysfunctional, and it promotes the idea that black manhood is weak. So that's another show I have an issue with, because it presents us with the idea that black men are just extremely dysfunctional and incapable of being a head of household, incapable of being a leader, incapable of being an authority figure, and that his house is full with chaos. So that's another show that really promotes the worst ideas about black people. And what's really sad about a lot of these shows, like your Ms. Pats, your Monsters Balls, your Preciouses, and many others, isn't that they're made by white people like the blaxploitation movies of the 70s. What's really sad about it is that much of this content is made by black people, and like your Lee Daniels and your Tyler Perrys and many others. And these black folks don't seem to have the same conscientiousness that people like your Bill Cosby had, people like your Quincy Jones had, people like your Suzanne Dupass had. I mean, those producers back in the 80s and the 90s, they had a sense of conscientiousness regarding their content, and they understood that if they made content, they had to be careful about what they present out here, because people become influenced by this content, and they want to make sure that if they go out here and produce content, they're not putting something out here that is detrimental to black people. That was one of the things that really made me happy about Bill Cosby back in the day. He was just so responsible as related to the content he produced, like the Cosby Show, and even before them with other shows he was involved with. He was always careful about his image, and he was also concerned about the optics regarding black people, because he understood that if you put the wrong content on, it can impact an entire generation of black people and how they see themselves. So that was one of the things I really used to admire about Bill Cosby. And it's also something I admired about people like Suzanne Dupass and people like Quincy Jones. They were very careful about the kind of content they would put out here, because they understood how important it was to make sure that you came out with good content, because people when people watch content, it shapes how they see themselves, it shapes how they see the world. And that was one of the lessons I learned from reading about people like Bill Cosby and many others. And it was one of the things that influenced me as I was out here producing content for my own SJS Direct imprint. I try to be as careful as possible because I know that many readers are picking up books like the ISIS series or the Esteem series, or even some of my nonfiction like the Man Crisis. And that's why I try to keep my content as positive as possible and as balanced as possible, because I know that there's a lot of people picking up my content, and I want them to, when they are influenced by it, be influenced in a positive fashion. Because if you go out here and you read some content and it inspires you to go out here and do something like start a business or learn what not to do and to avoid predatory females or avoid people who are toxic, that's something that I do because I know that content can, change a person's life. So I try to keep the content as positive as possible so that people can go out here and do something constructive, because that was one of the things that I want people to do when they pick up one of my books, think about doing something constructive or going out here and trying to help improve the quality of their life. So that's something that as I see it, a responsible content creator does. They want to go out here and create content that is positive, and they want to go out here and influence others to go out here and be positive. I mean, that's something that, again, I want to do. And as if I was a producer, I would want to make sure that my content was something that inspired people to do better, not sit out here and sit there and think about buying into the worst behaviors, because we've got enough people out here doing the worst behaviors, and we need people to start being inspired to go out here and try to do better. I mean, one of the impacts of the different world was we saw more kids going to college, and anybody who creates content like that, that's an impact having on people's lives. I mean, when you're out here and you create a show that makes it where people see college for the first time, and then they start thinking, hey, I want to go to college and I want to go out here and work towards a career, that's a positive impact on people's lives. And we needed more Black entertainers to put more content out there like that. I mean, there were shows that, like Sister Sister showed us a great family unit. Fresh Prince showed us, a father, even though it wasn't his son, teaching him lessons about manhood. And we got a lot of great stuff in the 80s and the 90s that really showed us. Again, entertainers, they may not have had the most perfect lives, but they at least were responsible as related to the media they were presenting, and they were responsible as related to the images and the media they were presenting to people, because they understood the influence on young minds, and they understood the influence that people were as related to television, as related to movies, and as related to books. So I understand how important it is to be responsible, and that's why I'm really disappointed with a lot of today's Black entertainers, because they aren't really thinking about how a lot of their behavior is reflecting on the Black image. They're not really thinking about how their behavior is impacting others in the world. They're just thinking, I'm going to get a check and I'm going to gain the favor of these racists and the executives. But that's not really why you should be here, to gain favor with some executives. It should be about you going out here and creating some content that will go out here and inspire and uplift others. I mean, that's something that I dedicated myself to do when I was working towards building this SJS Direct imprint. I wanted to create different images and positive stories about the Black experience and broaden people's minds. Again, I wanted to be responsible with my images and my stories, and I don't want to sit there and just create any old type of content, because any old type of content, it's going to come back and it's going to bite you in the backside when you have people influenced by it. I mean, when you go out here and just create any old content and think it's okay, because a lot of these black entertainers, all they're thinking about is, oh, I'm just going to go out here, get this big paycheck, like a Lee Daniels, and I'm going to gain the favor of these white executives, and I'm gonna not ever thinking about how any of the content they're producing is affecting black people. Now, when I look at Lee Daniels, he's another guy I have a real serious issue with, because he promotes some of the worst images of black people. I mean, he promotes these images of these self-hating, self-destructive black people, and then you have him sitting there presenting black people as bums and losers and degenerates, and that's not who we are. I mean, that's what the racists want to see, and he's going out here compromising the black image so he can make some fast dollars, but he's not going out here presenting us as we are. I mean, when I look at his Monsters Ball, his Precious, and that show Empire, that trash, I mean, Empire, which set black people back about 50, 60 years, I mean, all of these stories really present the worst images of black people, and your Lee Daniels doesn't care about how this is affecting the young brother, the young sister, and how they see the world. And instead of them seeing a world where they see value in being black, they see a world where black people practically are self-deprecating in order to try to find white acceptance, and they're looking to go out here and either be black bootlicks, or they're out here participating in the worst stereotypical behavior, or they're out here going out here promoting these lifestyles that are, they are lifestyles. They promote the effeminization of black people. So that's why I have an issue with Lee Daniels, because he just promotes the worst as related to black people. He doesn't see black people the way a normal black person sees them. He sees them through the lens of self-hatred. So that's an issue I have with him. I also have the issue with your Ava DuVernay, who seems to have a fixation on making stories about black men in prison. I mean, it seems like she has a fixation on the whole idea of a black man being in jail. And that's not where every black man goes. I mean, if you do research, you see a lot of black men out here. They're not out here thinking about crime all the time. A lot of black men now are entrepreneurs. A lot of black men have learned different skills. I mean, I asked the question, why is it always a black guy talking about selling drugs in all these different types of movies and TV shows, when that's never been the case at all? I mean, no, a lot of guys have found other ways to hustle, and with today's internet, a guy can find a whole bunch of different ways to finance different ventures and different business plans. I mean, a guy can go out here, he can do eBay, he can do YouTube, he can go out here and even finance projects through crowdfunding like Kickstarter. Where's the sitcoms talking about this? Where are the movies talking about things like Kickstarters or YouTube, or guys going out here and finding different ways to make money on these different online platforms? I mean, nobody. That's a pretty question I have to ask, because even like 50 years later, we still are getting the Jive Time black guy, or the black guy who has to go out here and sell drugs. And that's not the case in the 21st century. I mean, in today's 21st century, you have black men out here who are doing things legit. They are going out here using, like, if they're in the music, they're going out here using things like Spotify and iTunes. I mean, guys have all sorts of different hustles, but you won't see Hollywood talking about those type of hustles, because many of the black producers are still trying to appease your white racists, and they're sitting there talking about guys talking about selling drugs like in the show Power. But guys don't need to do that anymore, because there again are so many different hustles that a guy can do in different small businesses that black men, we don't talk about that with black men, but they'll sit there and they'll talk about this with white men. I mean, you can have a white guy And you can talk about that guy going out here and starting a business, but you never see that in any sort of media with a black person. And that's something that, again, I have an issue with many of these producers who are in control over the black image, like your Lee Daniels, your Tyler Perry's, your Oprah Winfrey's, and your Ava DuVernay's and many others. They won't go out here and create media that shows us the black image and shows us black people going out here and you finding different alternatives. No, they are still stuck in the 1980s, late 1980s, I'll say that, early 90s. Oh, he's selling drugs or he's in a gang. I mean, old stories that are just completely passe, old stories that have been there, done that. They're still talking about many of these old laid out stories, and they're not really thinking about, again, the black image because they want to appease their white executives and these white producers. They want to make these people feel good, but they don't want to go out here and elevate the black image because they want to continue getting their bread buttered, not understanding that you don't have to go and get your bread buttered by Hollywood like that. Thank you, Rashana Morrison, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. And if you want to donate to the super chat, you can do so as well. And if you want to donate to the Cash App, that would also be greatly appreciated because 100% of the funds for the Cash App go for projects like the upcoming John Haynes at Death Store that I'm getting ready to release soon as we get the art finished. And you can take a look either on my post page for a sneak preview page of John Haynes at Death Store, or you can check out the sneak preview page on the Patreon on my Facebook. So you can check out that sneak preview of John Haynes at Death Store. I post one of my favorite pages so far. And again, I want to be responsible with the kind of images of black people I put out here because these images can have an influence on people. I mean, even when I was reading the comments in the chat as related to John Haynes, thank you again, Rashana, for the super chat. But I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your support. But I saw the influence from people. I mean, one guy said that the scene between John Haynes and Death reminded him of himself and his baby mama. So that was really that was a moment that really floored me. And another guy said that John Haynes really looked masculine and strong. So an image like that can have a major influence on people. So that's something that we're not seeing with Black Hollywood, them taking that kind of responsibility as related to the black image and understanding that when you create images out here, you need to really think about what you're putting out here because there are not only kids watching these kind of content, there's young people watching that kind of content, and they want to see something that makes black people look good because everywhere you go, there's somebody making black people look bad. And sadly, our entertainers are not taking that kind of responsibility. They're just thinking, oh, I'm living my life. But no, you're not just living your life. You have an influence on others. And if you behave in a dysfunctional fashion, it's going to impact other people. Like a lot of these entertainers and these ball players, and they're not really thinking when they put on these skirts and dresses, how this is impacting a lot of our boys and our young men. And a lot of our boys and our young men, they are learning to become effeminized because we have been bombarded with all of these images of these effeminate men and these men who are willing to compromise their dignity in order to gain favor with white racists. And an example of that recently that was shown to us was your Russell Westbrook. Now, here is an NBA superstar who is a father and a husband, and he's going to go out here and put on women's clothes for a photo shoot. And I had to shake my head at that image of him because here's a guy who knows better, but he goes and does this. And when he does this, he doesn't understand that when you're out here, they're having an influence on how other young brothers and young men see themselves. And this image is not something that presents a positive image of, as I see it, black manhood or black masculinity. And the critical question I ask is, how would his son feel seeing him like this? I mean, because when I see these black men in these skirts and these dresses, this is a bad look optically for black men, because this is saying that the black man is a weak man. This is basically the black man compromising his dignity to go out here and gain favor with these white racists in the entertainment industry and the advertising and business industries, in order to try to elevate their social status and gain approval from them. And they're doing this, and it seems like a ritual, because every time I see one of these black entertainers or one of these athletes out here, they have them put on one of these dresses or these skirts or some makeup, and they try to find some way to effeminize them. And the image of it is just designed to emasculate these men, strip them of their manhood. And as in some ways, I see it as a ritual of buck breaking these black men, saying that they will be able to cow and make these men submit. And that's what I see when I see these constant images of these black men. And I can't imagine what a lot of young kids are thinking when they see these kind of images, because this has a psychological impact on a mind, especially a young black mind, when you constantly see these kind of images all the time. I mean, every image you see of a black man is one of these black males who is supposed to be a top celebrity. Every time you're seeing him, he's got on a dress. Every time you see him, he's got on some heels. Every time you see him, he's wearing feminine clothes. And the only men you see like this are black men. You don't see any white men dressed like this. You don't see any Asian men dressed like this. You don't see any Indian men dressed like this. You don't see any Arab men dressed like this. You don't see any Hispanic men dressed like this. The only men you see in these kind of images are black men. And sadly, none of these black men are thinking about how this looks optically to the black community, or how much influence it has on the overall black community of black boys and young black men. They're not really thinking about it, because all they're thinking about is, I'm going to win white validation and white approval. But what you're promoting is the idea that, one, the black man is weak; two, the black man is soft; three, the black man is effeminate; and four, the black man can be broken down into a submissive position, because that's what people do when they want to humiliate a man. They put him in women's clothes because they want to say that he is a weak man that they can break down. Just like happened in the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq, when those soldiers put those panties on those prisoners, that was a testament of saying, these men are broken, these men are weak, they are humiliated, and we are taking away their manhood and their dignity. And the same thing is being done in a ritualistic fashion to your black man here in America. And many of your black entertainers today, like the ones in the past, like a Stepin Fetchit and your Hattie McDaniel and Bill Bojangles Robinson, they are sitting there thinking, oh, this is okay. But it's not okay, because what you're doing is degrading the black male image, and you're not really concerned with raising it up and elevating it, because we already have, again, a lot of these negative stereotypes. But what they want to do is further push this attack on black manhood. Now, another guy who pushes a negative attack on black manhood is your Little Nas X. Now, your Little Nas X recently came out with some pictures saying that he was pregnant as part of a marketing stunt from his satanic record, Montero. And those images, again, show more irresponsibility from yet another black entertainer. And this Little Nas X, he's just out here promoting, again, he's going to destroy the image of black manhood. all because he wants to elevate himself further and gain favor from whites. And this is one of the saddest things that you could ever see. This man has practically made it where he was made videos where he has worshipped the devil, and he's talking about he's pregnant, and he promotes the absolute worst images of black manhood. And what's really sad is how unabashed he is regarding it, and how he really does not think about any sort of responsibility as related to his influence on other people. He doesn't think about, you know, how these images are going to be seen by young brothers and young sisters out here. And he's not thinking about how this is going to reflect on the overall black image. Thank you, Darius from Atlanta, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Again, if you guys want to donate to the super chat, you can do so as well. And if you want to, again, donate to the Cash App, you can donate to the Cash App. And again, all the funds that I get from the Cash App will be used for more positive projects like John Haynes at Death's Door and many of the books on the SJS Direct imprint that I produce, like John Haynes Taking Care of Business, Isis Revenge of the Cyber Goddess, and novels like Eternal Night and The Man Crisis. This is the type of content I produce on the SJS Direct imprint, stories that present positive images of Black Americans and stories that diversify the Black book market in genres like fantasy and science fiction and nonfiction. So I really want to, again, create more positive images because, again, I believe in being responsible with the kind of stories I tell, and I believe in trying to go out here and present more balanced, humanized images of Black people, because when I look at the media that they're producing today, it really makes me, again, shake my head, because when I think about the work of great men like Bill Cosby, I mean, nobody's trying to build on that legacy. And what I'm seeing today from today's irresponsible entertainers is them going back to the dark days of the mammy and the minstrel, and seeing them go out here and breathe brand new life into old stereotypes from the dark days of the 30s and the 40s. I mean, that's the kind of content I see, because many of our entertainers really don't have any sort of education on what you do when you're in control of the Black image. So this is something that I'm not seeing with many of today's Black entertainers, is a sense of responsibility. It's something that's really is disturbing to me, because these people are willing to compromise their morals and their values, and that's reflected in the type of projects that they produce. They don't go out here and produce responsible content as related to the Black image, not understanding that people are going to be watching this content 10, 15, 20, 25 years from now. I mean, that's one of the things that I think about when I go out here and create content. I mean, I have books that are 10 years old. I have books that are on their way to being 20 years old. The first Isis is on its way to being 20 years old. And books like The Temptation of John Haynes, which are 10 years old, and books like A Recipe for Success, which are 10 years old right now. I mean, those books, they're still having an impact on people's lives. And people come back to me and they write me letters telling me, you know, I read this book and it really changed my life. And that means a lot to me, because, you know, when I came out here, I wanted to go out here and create that type of content, because I understand how important it is to the Black community. Because when you have really good positive content, it can really shape how people see themselves. It shapes how people see their community. It shapes how people see things like the Black family. So making responsible content is something that any good producer wants to do, and it's something that I don't see today. Many of today's entertainers really going out here and being active about. I see a lot of today's entertainers, they just sit there and think, oh, there's nothing of putting on a dress. They think nothing of going out here and emasculating themselves. And then you have other entertainers who think nothing of breathing brand new life into old stereotypes. as long as the check clears. But when the check clears and all the money is spent, you have to deal with the society you created by participating in these images and promoting these kind of stories, because all of those people who you could have influenced to do better, what they're out here is doing worse. And they're doing worse because you wanted to make a compromise to gain favor with white racists instead of trying to go out here and empower others to go out here and do better and be better. I mean, if I were making television shows, I would be doing shows about the black guy who starts an internet business, or I would be doing a show about, a guy going out here and finding other alternative ways to make money. I mean, there's no need to keep writing about drug dealers, because drug dealers, they all ended in 1993, 1994, and the whole drug business has gone over to your white people who are now doing most of the drug dealing these days. I mean, let's talk about some of the other aspects of black life, and that's not what we're seeing in a lot of today's media, which continues to pull us into the gutter and continues to push the worst ideas about black people. And sadly, we don't have black entertainers who have that sense of responsibility, or that sense of conscientiousness, or that sense and understanding that everything that you do influences others. I mean, we don't really have that anymore, and that's really another sad thing, because I believe we do need to see more of our black entertainers being responsible and saying, hey, I got to watch how I present myself in public. I got to watch what I present in a lot of media, because if I go out here and I present something that reflects negatively on black people, it's not just going to affect me, it's also going to affect everybody else as a collective, because they're going to judge me based on my actions. And that's the sad, horrible truth as related to being black here in America, is that when you go out here and you present these type of images, it affects the entire collective. Because when you have a Ms. Pat show, which gives us the big, loud, sassy black woman with an attitude, that reflects negatively on all the sisters out here, especially a lot of the sisters out here who are trying to do better and be better. I mean, you make their lives a lot harder. And when you have guys out here who are putting on black men putting on dresses, I mean, how is a black man supposed to be taken seriously and get respect? I mean, it's a critical question I would love to ask all those black men who go out here and put on these dresses. And that's something that they're not really thinking about, because they're only thinking is, oh, these white people are going to like me, but it's not about white people liking you. It's about you valuing yourself and you valuing your dignity and your self-respect. Now, another issue I have with many of your black entertainers out here as related to being irresponsible is them going out here and taking shots at our elders. Now, it seems like there's another ritual in addition to the black man putting on a dress that your black entertainers go through, and that is your black entertainers going out here and taking shots at our elders. And it seems like every black entertainer who wants to elevate themselves, what they want to do is go out here and take a shot at Bill Cosby. And that to me is one of the most insulting things I have ever seen. I mean, your Bill Cosby was the man who went out here and fought for black entertainers to get them where they are. I mean, most people wouldn't even be where they are if it wasn't for Bill Cosby. I mean, your Bill Cosby, he fought for the Stuntmen's Union. Your Bill Cosby fought to get black people jobs on many of these shows. Your Bill Cosby helped start many careers of black entertainers. And your black Bill Cosby put in a word for people like Clarence Brown III, the late Clarence Brown III of the Mod Squad. And he put a lot of influence to help a lot of people. And instead of people showing gratitude towards Bill Cosby, they go out here and take shots at him. And they take the shots at him because they want to try to gain influence with these white racists in Hollywood. And that's a complete disrespect, because you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your Bill Cosby. I mean, to take the man who actually gave you a opportunity to go out here and have a career. Thank you, G Boot. Yeah, it was Clarence Williams III, and he did give him the opportunity, gave him the recommendation. The late Clarence Williams III. I mean, that his career would have never taken off if it wasn't for Bill Cosby. I mean, incredibly influential man, and I just really it disgusts me to see people just trying to to take shots at him as a springboard, and that's not the way you treat an elder in a community. I mean, the black community should be showing this man the greatest of respect. I mean, here's a man who opened doors for black people, gave black people opportunities, and you have a lot of these black entertainers, instead of showing respect to a great black man like Bill Cosby, looking to take swipes at him, thinking, oh, I'll get some influence with these white entertainers, but you're not going to get any influence with these white executives. You're going to get the same raw deal that your Hannibal Buress got when he made that compromise with your white media. Now, your Hannibal Buress, he went out here, ran this story about Bill Cosby, and yes, they gave him a little bit of crumbs at the beginning, but after that, he just fell into obscurity. So your Hannibal Buress, yes, he was out here buck dancing, bojangling, and bootlicking, and at the end of the day, he wound up with a big bag of nothing, and that's what the racists are going to give you, a big bag of nothing, and they're going to leave you out here all by yourself because they got what they wanted. They saw that they could get you to compromise. They gave you your 30 pieces of silver, and after they give you your 30 pieces of silver, that's when they go out here and leave you to hang. And that's what happens to many of these people who take shots at Bill Cosby. Sadly, many of the people who work with him on the show and people like Jaleel White, who he gave a hand to, and like G Boot said, there's a lot of people. Again, Bill Cosby has helped. I mean, he helped Sinbad, Eddie Griffin, Dougie Doug. I mean, so many great talents that came up in the 80s and the 90s and even in the 2000s. I mean, he gave out so many opportunities, and it just makes me sad to see people turn on him, and now it's like a ritual. Oh, you turn on this elder, but if it wasn't for that elder, you wouldn't be here to be even in working in this whole field, because he was the guy who laid the foundation for the field. He built up the steps to get you in here, and to turn your back on him, that's just extremely cruel. I mean, I didn't know he worked with Robert Townsend. I know that he did with Meteor Man. He helped him out on that movie, helped him out on so many different things. And I just look at that, and again, it's black people not looking out for our elders. And that's really bad on our image, because that really violates one of God's 10 commandments, which is honor thy mother and thy father. I mean, when God made that commandment, it was for us to look after our elders, to honor our elders. I mean, our elders got us here, and you show respect to your elders by showing respect for all of they have done for you, and you show gratitude for them. But what we're not seeing that from many of today's black entertainers, who are not looking at their image and how it looks really bad when you're out here and you're not honoring your elders. And that comes from, again, a complete breakdown as related to family. A lot of black folks really don't understand the concept of family. They don't understand the concept of things, because we've had the family practically broken in many places. So we don't understand the importance of looking out for our elders, because if we don't look out for our elders, there's nobody to look out for us. And the whole thing is, there's nobody to look out for our legacy, because if they can tarnish the legacy of an elder, they can tarnish the legacy of somebody who is younger, and they can also lead to them being taken advantage of, like what I'm seeing with a lot of these black entertainers who are not really looking out for their image. Because if you don't look out for the image of black people, then these racists are going to go out here and take advantage of black people, and they're going to do terrible things to the image of black people. So if we don't have people who go out here and look out for our image and look out for what we look like in our optics, we're not going to look good for ourselves. And all we're going to do is continue promoting stereotypes that present the worst images of us to the world. So we have to look out for our image, and we have to educate others to look out for our image, because our image is something we need to go out here and actively protect. That's something every other group in the world does, is protect their image. And they protect their image by going out here and presenting themselves in a way that looks optically strong. And that's not something we're seeing from a lot of the people who produce today's Black media. They're not out here looking to make Black people look optically strong in images. I mean, you don't see images like this one I put on John Haynes taking care of business on most media these days. I mean, in the 90s, you would see this kind of image. I was inspired by the Keenan Ivory Wayans movie, A Low Down Dirty Shame, to recreate that image and pay homage to it with this cover. But you don't see images of Black masculinity and Black femininity out here like this being produced by great artists like I work with, like Mike Williams, who does a fantastic job on the John Haynes covers. I mean, nobody's making these types of images in mainstream media that present us with, again, balanced images of Black people, or like when I do with Isis Revenge of the Cyber Goddess, again, strong images of Black womanhood that show us our women being feminine and also being involved in action shots. So we don't really get these kind of images in the mainstream, but that's because people are not being responsible as related to the Black image. And again, today's Black entertainers, they see themselves as individuals and they're not really thinking about the group. But responsible producers of content, we have to think about how our images reflect on the group, because the group is judged by individuals in the Black community. That's one of those unwritten social rules that is out there, that your Black people, when we go out here and create content, it can affect the entire group. So we have to be responsible about it. And that's a message that has not been taught to a lot of today's Black entertainers. And a lot of today's Black entertainers are sitting there thinking that they're individuals, not understanding these stereotypes reflect on us as a group and can literally lead to people practically having their lives put in jeopardy. Because when you have people who promote these ideas of thugs and criminals and gangsters, this is the kind of stuff that puts targets on Black men's backs. And when you go out here and promote the idea of drug dealers, and they're out here, but the whole thing is the mainstream media exaggerates those images to the point where they try to make them the norm because that's what racists want to see. But that's not who we are as people, and that's not who we are in the real world. I mean, again, I run into so many working class brothers out here and working class sisters out here, and those stories don't get told. And we really don't get to see that full, rich picture of the Black experience. And again, that's all because we got Black producers who are not taking responsibility for the Black image. And we have Black entertainers who are not really thinking critically about how they present themselves. And they're not really, again, respecting the work of an icon like a Bill Cosby. They're not understanding why he did what he did. And they're just believing all of these false stories about Bill Cosby, not understanding that this man did so much to protect the Black image, and we need to build on the legacy that he had that's related to protecting the Black image, preserving the Black image, and making efforts to present the Black image in the most positive light. So as I see it, a lot of today's Black entertainers, they're thinking they're getting fast money and fame, like Gabriel is saying in the chat. And again, fast money, it ends very quickly. That's one thing I know about this business is that, yeah, you can go out here and make those compromises and think you're going to get ahead. But oftentimes, once they finish using you, they then drop you and you're just back out here all by yourself. So that's another reason why, again, you have to be responsible with your image, because these kind of compromises, yes, you can make them, but then once you have made them, you are practically forgotten and you are practically no longer there. I mean, once the white supremacists in entertainment get you to go out here and sell out, what they do is they forget about you and then they don't want to have anything to do with you. Joshua, what do I think about Joseph C. Phillips? The same thing I think about Lisa Bonet and Malcolm Jamal Warner and Raven Simone, that they all or just it was just sad to watch them sell Bill Cosby out. And they were thinking it was going to advance their careers in Hollywood. But as somebody who knows the entertainment industry, I can tell you that once you go out here and sell out, those same people are going to drop you because they're extremely shallow and they are going to forget your phone number. Now, a lot of these people think, oh, this will get me a job here. They think that they'll get you somewhere, but it's not going to get you anywhere. And bootlicking, like G. Boot has said, like the Joseph C. Phillips, he's a bootlick. Bootlicking is not a career. I mean, because they take you coming from a position of weakness. And when you come from a position of weakness, those same people who disrespected you still have no respect for you. And that's where Joseph C. Phillips and many of the people who take shots at Cosby, you're not really thinking about, is all those people who you're trying to gain favor with. They never respected you in the first place. And now that you've placed yourself in a position of weakness, they have even less reason to go out here and respect you. So all of these black entertainers, again, they're not understanding that this is not a good look for them optically. When you go out here and throw people under the bus, like what happened to Mr. Cosby, that somebody's going to throw you under the bus. And usually these white supremacists who you're trying to pander to, they're going to throw you under the bus sooner rather than later. And then a lot of these guys, they wind up they think they're going somewhere, but they're actually going nowhere at the end of the day, because when you go out here and you're a bootleg, nobody respects a bootleg. And the only way to get respect is for you to go out here and take it by standing up for what you believe in, because the man who stands up for himself, that man is going to get respect. And that's something many of today's black entertainers don't have, because many of today's black entertainers have compromised their dignity. Many of today's black entertainers have compromised their self-respect. Many of today's black entertainers have gone out here and sacrificed their intangibles as related to their dignity and their self-respect, all to think that they're going to gain some sort of green light from one of these white executives. But these white executives don't care about empowering black people. All they want to do is to go out here and promote degrading images. And they promote the degrading images because many of these black entertainers are completely weak and they're complete clowns. Like TW is talking about Kid Cutie, another black man who put himself in a dress. I mean, nobody respects these entertainers because they are willing to compromise their dignity, and they make black people as a collective look bad. I mean, why would I want to support somebody who does not support us as a collective by being their best? Why would I want to go out here and support their content when they go out here and promote the absolute worst images of us as a people? That's a critical question I want to ask many people out here, because these entertainers, they go out here, they put on dresses, they act a fool, and then they expect people to respect them. But the only thing they get is nothing more than mocked, laughed at, and made fun of. And they're thinking, oh, I'm putting on this dress and getting attention. But they're not going out here and presenting us in a positive light. Airborne makes a good point, says, I am concerned that our young people see these negative images and stereotypes. Much of this exposure is unfiltered. Yeah, we must take charge of our image, and we have to go out here and take our money and start spending it with people who promote positive images like those that produce on the SJS Direct Imprint. You got the way you combat all of those negative stereotypes is picking up books like the John Haynes series, which presents you with a positive image of black manhood and black womanhood, or books like the ISIS series, which presents you with images of strong black heroines, or stories like Eternal Night, or you pick up some books like Concrete Comics. I mean, the content is out there as related to black people, and the content is out there, but we have to go out here and start supporting it. We just can't sit there and continue to support irresponsible Hollywood performers. So there's Concrete Comics. I'll put a link to their website because they have a lot of great black positive comics. Okay, you can get some great stuff from people out there. They have some of the best positive images of black people you'll ever see in a comic. Is Concrete Comics. Very strong images, positive images of black people. Then there's Black Sands Entertainment. They have really great comics over there that feature positive images of black people. Manuel Godoy is a great guy. He produces some really great comics. Again, all these are black owned, black content out there, and it's all out there for you to get. And there's also another one that it's Concrete Comics, it's Black Sand. It's the Tuskegee Heirs. They do they produce some fantastic comics. These are all comics I've picked up and bought. I've actually met a lot of these people at the fairs, like the Schaumburg fair. And they create a lot of great positive black content. I mean, lots of great material out there, and you don't have to sit there and continue to settle for substandard black entertainment from black entertainers who are not going to be responsible for the black image. There are lots of great independent creators out there, and there's a lot of great stuff out there. Thank you, Rashana. I go out here and I support these black creators, and there's a lot of them out there, and I want to share them with you all, with you guys, so that you can continue to pick up some of these really great books. And again, I produce great books on the SJS Direct imprint as well. So there's a lot of great material out there, and I just want to continue to help more people pick it up. I mean, if you want to pick up some of my stuff, thank you, Charles Mohammed, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. I'll try to keep it personal. And if you want to pick up some of my books, books on Amazon, by clicking the link in the chat. I mean, there's so much good stuff, and again, you don't have to sit there and pick up this mainstream stuff anymore. I mean, and support these negative images that degrade us when there are images out there that empower us. And there are more and more material that people are trying to produce, and I'm trying to produce right now. So there are people out here who are picking up on Bill Cosby's legacy and looking to build on Bill Cosby's legacy, like I'm trying to do with comics like, John Hayes' at Death's Door. I mean, I have a Patreon you guys can take a look at. And it's up there in the free section. So there's a lot of great creators out here looking to build on Bill Cosby's legacy or taking responsibility for the black image. And yes, they're not going to get pushed by the mainstream media, because the mainstream media wants to push the worst images as related to black people. But there are a lot of great creators out there who want to go out here and create positive stories and create diverse stories. And you can see a whole different world just picking up some of these creators. So I just wanted everybody to think about taking more responsibility as related to the black image. Sorry, it must be the fan, Gabriel. Because I'm getting ready to wrap up in a minute. But the whole thing is that I want people to start thinking about, the entertainment you watch, the media you watch, the content you watch. I mean, you have to think about it, because it really can shape how you see yourself and how you see the world. So I really want brothers and sisters to really start thinking about it, because if these entertainers won't take responsibility for the kind of media they present to us, we have to start taking responsibility for the media we buy and support. And we have to go out here and start supporting better media out here from better producers, and producers who are more passionate about making the black community look positive and looking to inspire our young brothers and sisters to go out here and do better and be better. So I'm going to get ready to wrap up tonight's stream. I want to thank everybody for coming out to tonight's stream. And I'm having a bit of a slow month as related to book sales. So I'm asking everybody to head over to Amazon and pick up my books on the Amazon platform. I have a lot of great positive black fiction there. And if you want to try some of those books out, I would really appreciate it. And I've got a lot more great books getting ready to come out soon, like Easting Cancelification and I've got more books coming in 2022, along with the John Haynes of Death Door comic. So I have a lot of projects that I'm working on because I really love Black people and I want to present the best images of Black people. And the only way I can continue to do that is with your continuing support and you guys picking up the books and sharing them and getting the word out about them. So I'm hoping you guys will go out and continue to help me get the word out on these books. I hope you go out and pick up other great publishers like Concrete Comics, Black Sands, and Tuskegee Airs. So much great stuff out there. And the more of this type of content you read, it's going to shape the way you see yourself. It's going to shape the way you see the world. And it's going to make you see Black as beautiful and Black as powerful. So I've got to go out here and I got to work on the woman crisis, and I've got to go check out some other stuff that I'm working on right now. So I want to thank everybody for coming out to tonight's stream, and I hope you'll be there for next week's stream. Have a good night and have a great weekend.